speed. I am speed. One winner, 34 losers. I eat losers for breakfast.
Fantastic! Absolutely incredible! That lunatic, whoever he is changing the complexion of the race.
Part 3, last 2 races of the year. Let's do this. Clay Pigeon, down in deepest, darkest Dorset. This was another I did a Club 100 test, a Friday evening test before the grown-up championships earlier in the year. This is some footage of that test. I did an hour, which was cool. I was encouraged that I felt like my fitness held up pretty well through the course of the hour, and I think contrary to places like Wilton and Buckmore, where I feel like most other people have more experience, I got the impression not many other people had much experience of clay pigeon, which meant that in qualifying I was second on the grid, which was cool. We come to race 1, and have we gone back in time? No, this is just my even older GoPro after the other one I forgot the memory card for. So yeah, excuse the even worse looking footage and sound, but it proves my point that you don't need a fancy modern GoPro. This is an ancient one and it still does the job. I'm going to unashamedly still show a fair amount of this race though with the sound turned down, because it was a good race. Across the line and start the race, we're on the outside in second place, and maybe more than anywhere else I think the left hand side is really tricky here, because it's just so easy to get slightly nudged, and then you're outside for the long right hander, lose 3 places down to 5th behind Yusuf now. Keep it clean for the rest of lap 1, and coming to the end of the lap I've got a little run on Yusuf here, but clay pigeon is a really hard place to overtake, especially into that first corner, and this was a theme for the rest of the day. Unlike Buckmore, I think you've got to be much faster to overtake here unless you're really good. There's a bit of squabbling in front. Zach is down to second place and they're all fighting over second. I think it became clear quite quickly that Zach, who'd started on pole, was sort of having difficulties with this kart. Something wasn't quite right. So Harry in the lead is, I was gonna swear there, but he's firing off into the distance. Yusuf and Cameron both get through on Zach on the long right-hander there, and I'm sort of thinking to myself now, I've got to clear Zach as quickly as possible. If he's struggling, I need to be up with the guys in front. And the following lap, he just loses it, runs wide on that long right-hander, first corner, and we're back up into 4th place. And then this was just another great scrap between the 3 of us here, kind of for the most of the race, fighting for position. Like I said, it's hard to overtake, but there was a bit of backwards and forwards between Cameron, Yusuf and I through that left-right chicane, which is like flat, but just flat as long as you really clatter the curbs. I put myself on the wrong place there. You can't get round the outside on that corner, and it's something that I didn't learn from that mistake of pushing yourself on the outside in the right-hander at the end of the long straight. Onto lap 11 now, and we're still having this ding-dong scrap. Cameron goes up the inside but just slides slightly wide, can't take advantage. Again a run into lap 12, and external camera view there as we swoop through the first corner. Wonderful first corner. I drop back a bit and lose some time, but Cameron again has run wide through that corner, through the chicane here. Look at my right foot. If the camera doesn't do justice to just how much you're getting thrown around, and at that point my foot's sort of flying off the pedal as I'm nearly thrown from the cart over those curbs. Great fun. Back up with them in front now, and we come to the back markers. The back markers are a real factor at this track because it's hard to overtake. They have no obligation to move out of the way. Yusuf gets through there, but it's quite hard to even get past the back markers unless you're significantly faster. And I think this was Mike who's quick but was out of position. Cameron makes the move on him there, but can't hold on to it. Then there's a little touch there maybe, and that gives me something of a run, but it's very hard to make a difference into the first corner. But then Cameron runs just slightly wide and into the chicane, can get in front. More back markers, and I'm running a bit wide here in a sort of a similar way and losing back out to Cameron. This is just kind of the whole time, all 29 laps of this race on the limit, fighting for position. Yusuf has sort of made a break here through the traffic, so I'm now in front of Cameron, back up to third. Who is this looking up the inside now? Is it Cameron? No, it's Luke, who's been sort of catching us up the whole way, just clawing his way back, and suddenly he has entered the fray and has got third position, but now he's got the traffic to deal with. Back in front, we've got 3 laps to go now. I'm in 5th, and still we carry on as Cameron runs wide and Luke just squeezes through. Around this time I had noticed that Cameron got a penalty. This is something that you can take advantage of if you know the race numbers of people you're racing against. I think because I'd spent so long looking at results, I knew that Cameron was 48 and I saw he had a penalty, so he gets in front of Luke there again through the traffic. And so normally, the fun thing is to go for the move, but I knew that as long as I stuck right behind Cameron, I would at least jump ahead of him because of his penalty. So onto the last lap, and I sort of defend from Luke behind now, knowing that I can sort of let Cameron go. And that's it. We cross the line after a frenetic 20 minutes of racing. Fantastic fun. I was 4th on the road, but actually after penalties were applied to Cameron in front and I think Yusuf, that became 2nd place for race 1 at Clay Pigeon. And once again it's fist bumps with Luke and with Cameron after some brilliant, clean, exciting fighting all through that race. I mentioned in part 1 that this photo of me leading the pack into the first corner at Bayford was one of my favourite photos that the amazing Johnny P took all year, but this one of that race at Clay Pigeon of Yusuf leading from Cameron with me just sort of blurred in the background is just an awesome photo. Look at that. So maybe I was wrong when I said that the other one was my favourite photo, but hang on, maybe I was wrong to say that any of those were my favourite photos, because look at this. It's putting my sister's dog on the front page of the Clay Pigeon album. Yeah, there's the best photo. Look at little Pudding. So race 1 at Clay Pigeon went really great. It was fantastic fun, and I ended up 2nd after penalties, so fairly optimistic going into race 2. I hadn't got a trophy all year, thinking maybe this is a chance of getting a trophy, maybe I can even challenge for the lead. As I'm sharing, here's another thought that entered my stupid head in between race 1 and 2 at Clay Pigeon. I thought, I don't think I've had a penalty all season. I think I've got totally penalty free, and I wonder if I can go the rest of the season without getting a penalty. Do they give some kind of fair play award for the cleanest driver of the whole year? Would I get some kind of prize for that if I am so well behaved that I don't get a penalty all year? It didn't go as well as I was hoping, and there are certain points where I'm going to sort of stop and have a look back at things, because I think it shows the advantage of how, if you've got video footage and you can go back and have a proper look, you can sort of learn and develop and remind yourself of what you actually did in the moment. So here we go into the first corner in the same position on the left hand side, and it's sort of the same story. You're always maybe going to lose out a little bit there, and Luke and Jack both get through. Not too disappointed though, because I think it could be a lot worse than that on the outside in that first corner. And again, looking for opportunities to move back up. I think I had the speed into lap 3 now, and doof through the awesome chicane, and I've got a good run on Jack, but I've not learned the mistakes from race 1. I put myself on the outside into the hairpinny right-hander, and it's never going to work. Hugo in the black suit gets through on the inside, and it's just because I've put myself in a stupid position on the outside there. It's my own mistake. The following lap, and Hugo goes to the outside, and I've got to run up the inside, and then we're on the brakes, and oh, that was clumsy. Sorry. Oh dear. Okay, so I don't want to dwell on this for too long, but I think this is another advantage of having the GoPro footage, is just when you make a mistake like that, being able to go back and actually have a think, like, what happened, what went wrong in my decision making, and how can I learn from it for next time. So I want to have a look at the slow motion replay. So we come out of the chicane, Hugo in the black suit has a run on Jack in the red suit and goes to the outside as Jack covers the inside. I've had a look at where I brake, and I think I actually brake about the same places where I normally was. I was initially hoping to just follow Jack through and maybe get ahead of Hugo, but then he moves slightly to the middle of the track, and that leaves it open on the inside. And I remember at this point I actually thought, okay, I might be able to overtake them both here, which in hindsight was too ambitious, and I should have foresawn that that gap was always going to close, and that ends up with this clumsy moment. The good bit here is I can kind of nerf Jack on the front of his cart to spin him back around to try and maybe avoid like a takeout penalty there. So I just rewrite him a bit, and we only end up losing, I think, 2 places, although again, apologise to Jack. I did see him after the race to apologise. I think in hindsight I should not have been so clumsy, but I can see why, looking back in the split second you've got to make a decision, my decision making was just slightly challenged, and that's why I made a bit of a mistake, and there was a little gap that opened. So yeah, really good to look back and learn from that and remind yourself of what you did in the moment. One of the advantages of having this footage to go back over and have a little bit of a think about what I did. I was then running behind Jack in 6th place, although now carrying a penalty from that for a while. Was close at some points. Having a little look here, and then drifted back a little bit later on, and then coming over the line here onto lap 11 up the inside into turn 1. Yusuf has a little move on me there and gets it done into the chicane, which is a nice move, clean, very clean. Then I'm on the outside here again, and I don't think that's necessarily a mistake by me, but there's someone coming up the inside, then tucked back in behind Yusuf. A few laps later, blasting through the chicane. Amazing chicane at Clay Pigeon, still looking for space, can't find the room. And then the next one again, it's going to be another little just scrappy mistake here. It's another half move. I think I tap Yusuf, that unsettles him, and then that's allowed Justin through on my inside here going forward. Then as we're gonna come across the start and finish line, Justin's got a run on Yusuf, and I try and follow on the inside and outbrake myself and run wide on the first corner. Again, it's another clumsy mistake. They're really adding up, and that first corner outbreak mistake will come back to haunt us later on. Get through on Yusuf there as he runs wide, and then we start encountering the back markers who I end up on the grass here. There are so many just little tiny mistakes in this race, along with some fairly big mistakes. Coming to the end of the race now, and catching up with some of these back markers. And as we cross the line to start the penultimate lap, it's another brilliant Johnny P photo, just sort of encapsulating the carnage of the whole train of cars closing on these back markers. For the moment, just follow them through into turn 1. But that means that running up out of the chicane or into the chicane, Yusuf gets past. And then as we go up through the chicane, I've lost momentum again, and it's going to be another place as Wesley gets through on the inside. And that drops me down to 9th on the road. As we cross the line to start the final lap, it's Wesley in front in the black suit. He moves to the left to take the back marker, and I outbrake myself and I'm off, and I've ruined Wesley's last lap as well and cost him positions. And I'm in the barrier, and I've got to get out the kart, and I don't finish the race, and also rightly get handed, well, get the book thrown at me with penalties, so I'm sort of excluded and penalised from a race that I didn't even manage to finish. And it's a bad finish to the Clay Pigeon round 6. Oh dear, what a shame. That's it, last place. So let's again have another look at this in real speed this time, and listen as the engine note drops as I lock the brakes and lose grip and end up losing it. So again, it's another split-second decision which I didn't get right. This time I was only hoping to follow through Penny on the inside, as Wesley, who I was actually challenging for position, sort of tried to go around the outside, but I just misjudged how slippy it is on the inside of that turn 1 into clay, and I wasn't trying to be over ambitious, but I just misjudged how early I'd need to brake at that point. So this is going to cue another lecture about something in a sec, but first let's have a look at it from the Kart Bros cam, who ends up behind. Again, subscribe to Kart Bros and we can see it from their point of view. There's a whole crowd of people, it's all exciting, and we just end up spinning off. Again, I didn't get to speak to Wesley to apologise this time because I wasn't sure who it was I was racing, but if you're watching, I'm very sorry for that poor last incident. Very bad. So yeah, time for another lecture. So I want to talk about how best to use your practice qualifying time in the practice session before the races. I'm going to try and do this quite succinctly, although I'm not sure if that's going to work, so I might have to utilise some YouTube style jump cuts. We'll see how we go. So what's your priority for the session? You've got a 20-minute practice qualifying. The first 10 minutes of that practice, at which point the times are wiped, the green flag is shown on the display, and then you've got 10 minutes of qualifying to determine the grid position. So your priority there, obviously, for the overall thing, is to set the fastest time you can. Set the quickest grid slot time you can to get as high up the grid as possible. And remember, it's really tight. A few tenths here or there can be the difference between 5, 10, 15 grid positions. It can make a real big difference. So you want to go as quick as possible. And a sub-goal of that is to learn the track. That might mean learning the conditions on the day, especially if it's a bit slippy or greasy or wet. Or if it's your first time, it might be learning the track in general. Now remember, we can do our homework for that. So we can watch YouTube videos, we can purchase and download Nicky Richardson's great track guides, and that will mean on the day there's less learning of the track during the crucial 20-minute session you've got. To get that fastest lap, you want to make sure you get a few clear laps in. So if you find towards the end of the session that you've been in traffic the whole time, you've been following people racing, have a look behind, see if there's a gap behind that you can ease back into, give yourself a bit of a clear run for a few laps, particularly towards the end of the session when you've got dialed in. and have a few clear laps to really smash a fast lap and get a good grid position. Also, if stamina is an issue for you, so we mentioned fitness, if you find that you get tired after 20 minutes, it's quite possible, 20 minutes is a reasonably long time, you might just want to take a breather, just ease off for a few laps, sort of gather your thoughts, get a bit of energy so that you can really hit it hard for the end of the session, for the final grid slot. But as well as all that, there's a few other things I think you can learn from the practice, right? So as well as practicing the lines of the track on your own, in free space, clear air, I think it's a good idea to try and actually be with some other people at points in the practice session, because you can learn their lines. If someone quick overtakes you and you know they're quick, try and latch onto them, follow their lines, see where they're taking time out of you, and you can learn from that and improve your own lines and performance. And it's also just a good idea to have a bit of experience of racing on this track, like where can you overtake, how do you overtake, what corners is it a good place to overtake. There's a limit to this. You don't want to be like knocking 7 bells out of each other and getting penalties from your practice session. That's not what you want to do. No one will like you for that. But you know, trying to pull a few overtakes, seeing where people get past you. This is all part of practice, and it will help you in the race then. When it comes to doing the racing, you'll know where to overtake. It's really valuable. Another related thing, which brings me back to the clay pigeon race, and ultimately my excuse for messing up, is breaking offline. Now clay pigeon is pretty hard to overtake, and I hadn't done much overtaking in the practice session or even in the races, other than in a few places. And that final corner, I went offline on the inside into turn 1 and found it was really slippy, and I wasn't prepared for that. I think it's valuable, either when you're racing people in the practice or just generally, to just try a few times and see what the grip is like offline. If you're going into a corner, going into a hairpin, see what it's like on the inside, so when you come to a race and you're trying to outbrake someone, you don't make the mistake that I did and totally screw up and ruin someone's last lap, ruin your own race by suddenly realising, oh god, it's slippy offline. Now this is partly me just making an excuse, right? But I could have learnt more from the practice. Now there's a lot there, right? You've got 20 minutes, which at most tracks is 25-ish laps of practice and qualifying. So I'm saying a lot here, and you're not necessarily going to be able to do all of these things. But the practice time is really valuable. So try and use the time as best you can to, first of all, get yourself up high on that grid, get yourself qualified well, but also learn and develop your knowledge of the track and various things, such that come the race, you're in the best possible spot you can be. Round 6, clay pigeon. Race 1 went well, race 2 did not go well at all. Come on, give me the honest truth, Murray.
Oh, John, you may well look a bit worried. You've got a major problem, Sunshine, when you get back to the pits.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Rightly telling me off for that one. This is it, the final round of the championship, round 7, and a second visit to Buckmore Park. I spent a long time looking back at my videos, revising my lines, being prepared as possible. But it's Buckmore in November, and it's dry, but it's slightly slippy. Oh, the humanity, it's slightly slippy. All bets are off.
God, okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure?
Stay calm.
Wait.
Everybody calm down.
This is from qualifying practice. I'm not going to spend too long showing all of the mishaps. I made a separate video called Thrills and Spills at Buckmore Park. If you want to see the substandard driving in slightly greasy conditions, but this one is a funny one. Let's watch this from near the start of qualifying. onto the leaves and just, the most pathetic low speed accident. And here comes someone joining me. No worries, dust yourself off, get going again. The Novice experience goes to Buckmore Park in December this year coming, so if you're new to this, conditions like this will be expected at Buckmore. Back into the hairpin, let's go! Oh dear. I just laughed inside my helmet at that. So good, love it. This was the only time in the experience season that we had anything other than totally dry conditions. I haven't driven the Club 100 karts in conditions anything other than dry before. I haven't done any slippy wet karting before. We're on slick tyres, remember. It was notable that some of the people who've done the main series fared better in qualifying where they've done races sort of more in conditions like this. So I was perfectly happy to be 12th in qualifying, all good given the scenario. Nowhere near as wet as the following day when the Experience Heavyweights raced, which this photo sums up what that looked like, which is just crazy. Check Matt Salmon's MS26 racing video for that utter madness and how that unfolded. So yeah, into race 1 with similar conditions. Going to the start then, and I'm on the left hand side, the outside into turn 1, which I think in conditions like these is actually the better side to be on around the outside. There's more grip when it's slippy like this, and that means I can get a fairly good run through turn 1, nice and clean anyway, into the first hairpin, cautious but going up the inside of Cameron, and then you can go deeper into hairpin 2 and switch back, get the run, and there's someone sliding out wide on the outside, so that's another position ahead. Marcus in the red suit ahead now, and he just runs wide out of the left-right chicane, and I'm wayward down the hill but get the position done. So that puts me up into, well, okay, actually I realised that I started in 10th for some reason, even though I was 12th on the grid, so somehow started in 10th for some reason, gained 3 positions in the first lap, so up to 7th at this point now into the race. Always good fun going into turn 1. This is Zach in front now, just sliding everywhere. We're still in contact with the leaders. A nice dive down the inside in the last corner from Zach, and it's carnage behind. They're bumping, I'm wide. Marcus gets a run back on the inside and side by side past the pits. I'm on the outside and have to back out. Cameron gets back to the inside. Just madness. Cameron's too tight on the inside. He's got no grip on the inside. Can't capitalise. And there we are, back down to 9th. Still carnage. I'm too far on the inside. We're on lap 5 now, and Cameron and Marcus ahead are just getting tangled up, and that gives me the chance to dive through and back up into 7th again. Then again, I'm just all over the place on turn 1, and that's going to let Marcus have a run into hairpin 1, and he gets past. I'm being serious here when I say just how fun it is to be going into turn 1 and every lap just having no idea what's going to happen. I would just be like, let's pull another ball out of the turn 1 lottery. This one's great. We're both just sliding and braking. Come lap 10, Marcus has caught up to a back marker in front now. I think this is Mark maybe. And we're following close behind. It's drier here in the middle part of the track, through the left right of the chicane, down the hill into the corner, and he's lost it, and we have a big hit. Let's look at that back again. I think he was okay. He kept going. Yeah, that was a big moment, man. That was a heart in the mouth moment. In the end, I think I managed to just back off. We got going again. So yeah, no harm done. Well, hopefully no harm to Marcus done. I hope he's okay. He kept going as well. That put me down to 13th place come lap 11 here, behind this driver in the black suit, white helmet, called Rupert Rixon. Rupert Rixon is an excellent name for a racing driver. I can imagine Rupert Rixon would drive a blower Bentley in the 1930s. We're on to lap 16, and it's time to draw another ball out of the turn 1 tombola, and what have we got this time? We're on the paint, we're on the leaves, and it's the wall ride.
Take a look at what anything like that before in my life.
Works in video games and in NASCAR, doesn't quite work at Buckmore Park. That put me down to 17th places, and then a few laps later it's another way too tight line through turn 1, come on! And up the inside into the hairpin, it's Johnny Fletcher making his way through the field. Following lap, I am party to a bit of inter-sibling rivalry. It's the kart bros going up against each other, Johnny up the inside of Luke, and that gives me the chance to get through on Luke as well. The kart bros have been cranking out some excellent stuff on Instagram. Have you heard of Instagram? Apparently all the kids love it. Give them a follow. Into the bottom section of the track. On lap 21 now, down in 18th place, and gonna have another chance at a position following Johnny through here again, but I'm wide down the hill and it's still slippy here. It was drying out a bit through the race, but it's still slippy there. But turn 1, the curse of turn 1 is going to affect someone else, and I actually get a good run through for once. Finally worked it out 22 laps into the race, getting something good through turn 1. And that is going to be it. We end another fantastic race. Just hilarious fun, so much action, so much madness. I finished 16th on the road, but in the carnage at some point I clipped a bollard down at the bottom of the track, so 17th after a 1-place cone penalty. Race 2 at Buckmore Park was going to be under the lights after the sunset. Ooh. Which, again, probably stating the obvious, but I found it actually made quite a big difference. All your reference points change and stuff when you're racing in the floodlights, so yeah, probably an obvious point, but it did make a surprising difference. Also, Johnny's photos, brilliant all year, but some of them under the lights are not the most flattering. I'm not blaming Johnny for that. I think my whole sort of get up with the clear visor and I was wearing an extra rib protector just wasn't the most flattering on that Buckmore Park day. Race 2, and just to encapsulate the madness of the day, witness this spin on the way to the grid. That was before the race, already seen the first spin. We're now on the right hand side, grid 17th, going for a start in race 2 along the inside. The pack bunches up. I don't think the inside is the place to be, but managed to get a relatively clean run, although not a good run out. And then on the outside of the hairpin, there's a big collection of traffic all colliding. And into hairpin 2 on the outside. Going to run it a bit wide here, out on the paint, out wide. Not sure what positions are being gained or lost here. Down the hill, the car in front, is that Rupert again? Not sure. Is going to lose it on the slippery downhill section and then cannon back across into me on the outside. Lose momentum. Is that Paddock down the bottom? So lose a bit of momentum and then into the corner, the hairpin at the bottom. Just get clipped. Just get clipped. It's going to happen. It's once when you're in the middle of the pack like that, that's the disadvantage. Things like that can happen. Maybe I turned in a little bit too tight. I don't know. But there we go. So back down now to, well, basically last. Third, 28th place at this point, which is, kind of last. So looking to make up some places through the rest of this race. It's obviously dark. The GoPro my GoPro is struggling here. So I'll try and paint a picture with my words, but apologies, it's not so easy to see. Making a few moves here into hairpin 2, but get the cut back there. That is Luke Somerville, I think. And then back to lap 7 here, and it's a double overtake as Luke gets stuck there into hairpin 1. It's dark, and as the sun went down it got more slippy. Another spun car on the right hand side there. The turn 1 lottery was still in play, way too tight a line there. As the sun went down it felt like it got more slippy, although I'd just seen that we set faster laps in this race 2 than race 1, so I'm not sure. I think it was sort of slippy everywhere. Learning my NASCAR skills here to go side by side and give a big old tap of That's Mark Jackson, I think. This section here was real slippy. Yeah, just like grip was reducing as the sun went down. But all good fun. I'm really glad to have had a go at Club 100 karts in these conditions before the year was out, you know. So going into next year, I've now got some experience of what it's like driving the karts like this and what Buckmore Park is like when it's slippery, slidey like this.
If you're going hard enough left, you'll find yourself turning right.
Lap 13 now, and behind Mark still. And this time coming out of hairpin 2, he is going to get a run of the driver in front. He loses it and fires back across the track. And I'm on the paint here, just avoiding him. You can't see it, but yeah. But just avoid disaster. I was very scared, and then lose it going down the hill. I was pretty scared in that moment. I thought bad things could happen. A move round the outside of the corner after... Is it Garda, that right-hand hairpin? I think it's Garda they call it. But it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back as the turn 1 lottery. We're on the paint and we spin. But it's a canny ricochet off the barrier this time to rewrite. Like a Robot Wars circa mid-1990s rewrite.
The ramp turns up. Brilliant! Superb gymnastics.
So now we're back behind those people we've just overtaken. Do get lapped here. This is Yusuf and Harry. I sort of noticed they were behind and tried to let them through without too much damage. Running wide out of hairpin 2. I thought that was being lapped at that point, but I think it was actually for position. That's Hugo, who will then follow through to gain a position down the bottom of the track here. A few laps later, he slips wide through what I think is Garda, and I'm wide going up the hill, but just hold on to it. And then that's it. Keep it clear for the rest of the race. Coming up to the line, finishing in 21st position in this race after being knocked to the back. There's still more time just to cap off a mad day of racing, to have another little wall ride moment here after the race, after the finish. Still not getting turn 1 right. And there we go, a great finish to just a fun, silly day for a championship finale and the end of 7 rounds of just the best racing. So much fun. So much fun. Final round, Buckmore Park. It was a mad time. It was 2 crazy races. Murray, what have you got to say about this one?
I've got to stop because I've got a lump in my throat.
Yeah, sounds fair. Sounds fair. Thank you. That's it. 7 races done. Novice Experience 2022. If it didn't come across, I had such a sweet time in the championship. Loved every second of it. I'm chuffed with some of the performances in there. I learned a lot. I'm pleased with 7th in the championship. But most importantly, I'm looking forward to taking that forwards into next year in the intermediate experience that I'll be doing. So on the same days, but with the scary fast people. Who knows if the Richardson Energy money comes in good, maybe I'll be in some of the main series races next year or in future years. If you're watching this and you've entered the Novice Experience for the first time this coming year, amazing, good luck, hope it goes well, but most importantly enjoy it. Hope some of the tips might have been useful. There were a few more in the previous video I did as well. And come and say hi to me on the experience days. I'll be there, yeah, racing with the intermediates, getting my butt kicked probably. I've heard on the grapevine that after I released the previous video of should you enter the Club 100 Novice Experience, they've had like record numbers of entries. So you know, JV can put my check in the post. But my final tip is, if you did miss out on that, or if you're only deciding now that you want to enter and they don't have space, I mean, firstly, ring up the Club 100 office and see. But if you do miss out, keep an eye on the Club 100 Instagram page, because ahead of races, ahead of the novice weekends, and ahead of the main weekends as well, they'll post if they have space, if space opens up in the races in the upcoming ones. So you can jump on that, call the office and get yourself a race and maybe have a go, get yourself on the grid. If not, keep an eye out towards the end of this year, around November time, when the entries for 2024 will start opening up. That's it. I'm going to say a few thank yous. Maybe that's a bit soppy for a video where I just sort of drone on over some GoPro footage. Oh well. Thank you to all the competitors. Thank you to everyone I raced this year. An amazing year of fun, close, fair, thrilling racing, fellow novice experiences, good times. Special thanks to Matt Salmon and the Kart Bros, Johnny and Luke Fletcher, because I really enjoyed watching your videos after the races, and I also nicked bits of them for these videos. Thanks to John Patterson for the amazing photos and the memories. Yes, Johnny P. Thanks to the staff, the Club 100 staff, everyone involved, putting on such fantastic events and helping us all out, helping us newbies out. Thanks to Nikki Richardson's track guides. I just download them and listen to everything they say and obey them. It's not natural talent. I just do what I'm told. And then thanks to my wonderful wife for accompanying me to many of the races, keeping me company, keeping me fed and watered, putting up with hours of crappy traffic on the M25 as we went to and from Kent again, putting up with me needing a wee on the way home because I'd drunk too much water, so we had to stop every time. And then thanks to everyone else who came and supported me at the races. A lot of the photos and videos I've used here are from other people as well, so thanks to that. That's it. Good times. Cheers everyone. Thank you.